Imagine someone halfway across the world sets a 5-minute limit on a phone call with you.
Just a totally mundane boundary, right?
Right, just a basic personal boundary. And in response, you launch a multi-year transnational digital war.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds crazy.
It does. A war that ultimately results in your own banking sabotage, the potential loss of your career, and a legal trap that could literally physically confine you within the borders of Europe.
I mean, that is a massive, disproportionate leap.
Exactly, from a private annoyance to international legal warfare. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today for you. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah, glad to be here. And honestly, it sounds like fiction when you frame it that way.
It really does.
But the documentation we are working through today grounds every single bit of this in objective cryptographic reality.
Yeah, the data does not lie.
No, it doesn't. We are looking at a very specific, incredibly dense dossier today.
The title alone is heavy.
Right. It's titled The Comprehensive Forensic Analysis and Transnational Risk Report, Cyberstalking, Identity Fixation, and Regulatory Communication Impediments.
So, just to set the ground rules for you listening, we are acting purely as forensic investigators today.
Absolutely. No taking sides, just looking at the evidence.
Exactly. We're looking at server logs, public digital footprints, certified clinical records, and formal Italian state protocols.
And we have two main figures in this data set.
Right. So first, the claimant, Alberto Daniel Hill.
He's an internationally recognized Uruguayan cybersecurity expert.
Yeah, a former Supreme Court forensic examiner, an Interpol alumnus, and the author of a book called Log into Hell.
Which is important context. He also survived a documented wrongful imprisonment ordeal, right?
He did, an ordeal that left him with severe medically certified PTSD.
Right, which is a crucial vulnerability profile when we get into the psychological impacts later.
Absolutely. Now, on the other side of this data set, we have the respondent.
Registries list her as Suvi Kotaranta or Suvi Kaipainen, a Finnish national living in Belgium.
But online, she mostly operates under the handle at CyberGirl10.
Yeah. Though the dossier also notes a highly concerning legal name change to Suvi Hill.
Right. We are definitely going to spend a lot of time on that name change later.
This is psychology there is just staggering.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start at the ignition point. How does this conflict actually begin?
Well, you'd assume something catastrophic happened, right?
I mean, looking at the sheer volume of retaliatory defamation, yeah,
Right.
I assume there was some massive betrayal.
Right. But the logs show it all started because Alberto instituted a 5-minute phone call limit.
Wait, really? Just a time limit on a call?
A single temporal boundary. That's it.
Wow.
And from a behavioral forensics standpoint, that constraint acts as a catalyst for a phenomenon known as cyber displacement.
Okay, I've been trying to wrap my head around that term since reading the brief.
It's a complex concept.
I mean, my understanding of displacement usually involves, like, having a bad day at work and coming home to yell at your roommate.
Right. You displace the aggression onto a safer target.
Exactly. But cyber displacement seems to take that instinct and inject it with steroids.
Oh, absolutely. Because you are weaponizing high-trust public digital spaces.
Like X or LinkedIn, right?
Exactly. You use those platforms to completely bypass traditional private conflict resolution.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about making it public.
Yeah, it's about the loss of control. In a private, one-on-one communication channel, Alberto holds the power to enforce that 5-minute boundary.
Because he can just hang up the phone.
Exactly. He can simply hang up. And the aggressor in this scenario realizes they cannot dominate the private interaction.
Ah, so they drag the conflict into a public arena.
Right, where they can dictate the narrative, the audience, and the duration.
So it is a coercive strategy.
Entirely. It's intended to damage the target's reputation so severely that they are forced to re-engage privately to stop the public bleeding.
Wow. It is basically attempting to hold a professional reputation hostage.
That's a great way to put it.
But to understand the sheer ferocity of this public attack, the dossier forces us to look at the respondent's life right before this digital explosion.
Right, what the analysts call the CyberGirl 10 paradox.
And it revolves around a terrifying contextual background happening in Belgium with her ex-husband, Pekka Kotiranta.
Yeah, the forensic reports cross-reference a severe domestic crisis going on at the exact same time.
Her ex-husband allegedly committed international parental child abduction.
Right, the logs indicate he smuggled their undocumented 11-year-old daughter across European borders.
Specifically from Belgium to France.
Yes.
And I read the timeline on that. It happened during a level 3 terrorism threat in Europe.
which is incredibly significant. The European entry-exit system is incredibly stringent during terror alerts.
Yeah, yet the child crosses without an ID or passport,
Yeah.
basically becoming legally invisible.
Completely off the grid.
Yeah.
And under Belgian law, the sources note that kind of physical endangerment and abduction carries 5 to 10 years in prison.
It is an immense, life-altering felony.
It is. And that brings us to the core of the paradox.
The behavioral asymmetry.
Exactly. The behavioral analysis in the dossier highlights a staggering behavioral asymmetry here.
Right, because in the face of this massive physical threat to her child, the respondent remained entirely passive.
Completely passive. We see no mobilization of a digital campaign against the ex-husband.
No public outcry online.
No aggressive deployment of legal resources.
Yeah.
Just complete silence.
But the moment Alberto sets a 5-minute phone boundary, she launches a scorched earth digital war across multiple platforms.
Which is so jarring when you look at the data side by side.
If I try to look at this rationally, it just doesn't compute.
No, it defies logic.
I mean, why ignore the person who abducted your child, but try to ruin the life of a guy who just doesn't want to talk on the phone for very long?
Right.
I keep coming back to cognitive load. Was she simply too overwhelmed to fight the real battle?
You are touching on a well-documented psychological framework there. It's called the strength model of self-control.
Okay, how does that work?
Specifically, we're talking about a state of ego depletion. Imagine your psychological resilience as a physical battery.
Right. You only have so much charge.
Exactly. Navigating a high-conflict international custody battle drains that battery to zero.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The cognitive bandwidth required to confront the ex-husband, navigate international family law, and deal with a major felony was simply gone.
So the threat was just too large, too dangerous, and legally complex.
She didn't have the psychological capital to fight the actual monster in the room.
So she redirected the entirety of her accumulated rage, stress, and trauma toward a softer, more accessible target.
Yes, Alberto was accessible. Furthermore, his documented history of systemic trauma from his wrongful imprisonment in Uruguay made him psychologically vulnerable.
Right, he was an open nerve.
Exactly. He became the repository for all the anger she couldn't express to her ex-husband.
Wow. It's displaced aggression amplified by the asymmetry of the internet.
That's precisely what it is.
She felt powerless in her physical reality in Belgium, so she sought absolute power in the digital reality.
Right, by attempting to systematically dismantle Alberto's life.
Let's look at the actual mechanics of how she tried to do that, because this wasn't just petty name-calling on Twitter.
No, not at all. The sources categorize her actions as defamation and regulatory sabotage.
Let's break down the defamation first.
So the specific claims published by the @CyberGirl10 account were engineered for maximum professional destruction.
Right, she publicly branded the claimant a cocaine user.
Yes, and she accused him, along with his 73-year-old mother, of operating as romance scammers.
Now, when I see the term scammer, my immediate thought is financial theft.
Sure, taking money under false pretenses.
Right, someone takes the money and disappears into the ether. But the forensic data regarding the underlying financial dispute paints a completely contradictory picture here.
It really does. This entire thing centers on a debt of about 6,000 euros.
Okay.
And preserved WhatsApp and Telegram chat logs show Alberto explicitly acknowledging the debt.
He wasn't denying he owed the money.
Not at all. He laid out a payment plan based on his income. The logs even show he sold a vehicle to liquidate the funds.
Wait, he sold his car to pay her?
Yes, he was actively trying to pay her.
Wow. So the intent to resolve the debt is basically undeniable in the cryptographic log.
Entirely undeniable. The friction arises from the reality of international banking.
Ah, right. Moving money across borders is never simple.
Exactly. When moving thousands of euros across borders, you are subject to rigorous anti-money laundering laws.
Commonly referred to as AML.
Right, and know your customer or KYC protocols.
Because the post-9/11 financial system is designed to stop illicit fund transfers, terrorist financing, massive fraud, all of that.
Yeah, you can't just Venmo 6,000 euros to an email address in another country.
Right. I know from my own experience with international wires, if the name on the account doesn't perfectly match the government ID, the receiving bank will just freeze the funds.
Absolutely. The sender's institution will also flag it immediately.
So what did Alberto do?
Well, Alberto requested the mandatory documentation required by his financial institution to clear the transfer.
He needed her verified passport.
Yes, a passport that matched her claimed legal surname and the specific IBAN and BIC routing data for her account in Europe.
And the dossier shows she deliberately refused to provide any of it.
Any of it. She essentially locked the door, hid the key, and then went on the internet to scream that Alberto was refusing to enter the house.
That is a brilliant analogy, and the analysts call this tactic regulatory compliance sabotage.
Yes, and from an analytical perspective, it serves a dual purpose.
Okay, what's the first purpose?
First, it actively blocks the resolution of the conflict. If she accepts the money, the dispute ends.
Ah. And for someone operating in a state of severe displaced aggression.
The end of the conflict means the loss of their emotional punching bag.
Wow. So she needed the conflict to continue to regulate her own trauma.
Precisely. She needed the grievance more than she needed the 6,000 euros.
That is so dark.
It is. And the second purpose is narrative control. By ensuring the money could never reach her account, she manufactured a permanent victimhood status.
Oh, I see. She could continually publish claims that she was being financially abused.
Exactly, using the banking gridlock she herself created as false evidence of his evasion.
That is a masterclass in weaponizing bureaucracy.
It really is.
Yeah.
But she didn't stop at the scammer narrative, unfortunately.
Right. She went after his character, labeling an internationally recognized cybersecurity expert a drug addict.
Yeah, the cocaine user claims.
And if you operate at the top tier of international security consulting, where you handle sensitive corporate or government data.
A public allegation of hard drug use is an absolute career killer.
So how did he respond? Because the mitigation strategy Alberto deployed here is perhaps the most clinical, detached response I have ever seen in a cyberstalking case.
It is remarkably disciplined. The natural instinct is to issue a public denial, right?
Yeah, to get into a shouting match online. Quote tweet them and defend yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Alberto engaged in what the analysts term radical transparency.
He went completely analog to solve a digital problem.
He really did. He didn't tweet. He went to a hospital.
Yeah, the sources show he secured certified clinical toxicology laboratory panels.
He had his blood and urine professionally screened by medical authorities.
Just to prove he was entirely clean of any illicit substances.
And by doing that, he fundamentally altered the legal landscape of the defamation.
How does that work legally?
Well, when we discuss defamation law in European jurisdictions, the most robust defense an accused person can mount is the acceptio veritatis.
The defense of truth.
Right. You cannot be penalized for defamation if you can definitively prove that the damaging statement you made is factually accurate.
So by introducing certified clean toxicology reports into the official dossier.
Alberto stripped her of that defense entirely. He vaporized her legal shield.
Wow. She can never stand before a judge and claim she was just warning the public about a real drug user.
Because the biological science proves she fabricated the claim out of whole cloth.
The clinical evidence establishes that her statements were not merely negligent.
They were intentional fabrications, which transitions our analysis from the content of the lies to the underlying pathology of the threat actor.
Right, which brings us to the identity fixation. And honestly, this is the part of the dossier that genuinely gave me a chill.
It is deeply unsettling.
We talked earlier about the persona she curates online, right?
The resilient single mother.
Yeah, the survivor leaning on her internet fam to get through a brutal custody battle. It's a highly sympathetic narrative.
On the surface, yeah.
But beneath that, we see a digital footprint revealing an obsession that crosses into intense identity alignment.
Right. She legally changed her name under Finnish naming laws to Suvi Hill.
And the legal name change is really the fulcrum of the entire cyberstalking campaign.
It is. We must look at the objective facts here. The dossiers explicitly confirm there was never a marriage, nor any formal kinship or legal union between Alberto Daniel Hill and the respondent.
So my immediate question when reading that was, could she just argue she liked the name?
A lot of people wonder that.
Yeah, how does a forensic investigator objectively prove that changing her surname is an aggressive act of cyberstalking and not just a random personal choice?
We look at the digital deployment of the new identity. She didn't just change her passport and go quietly about her life.
She immediately weaponized it.
Exactly. Creating aliases like at Scatarina Hill and deploying them aggressively in the harassment campaign.
Why do that, technically speaking?
In the realm of search engine optimization and digital algorithms, adopting the target's unique surname is a method of permanent digital tethering.
Because if someone searches for Alberto Hill to hire him for a consulting gig,
The search engine clustering algorithms will recognize Suvi Hill as a highly relevant related entity.
oh, wow. It forces her defamatory content into his professional search radius.
Precisely. She is forcefully binding her legal and digital persona to his family name.
To ensure that the collateral damage of her attacks is inescapable.
It is an extreme, obsessive manifestation of identity theft, not for financial gain, but for reputational contamination.
She is basically poisoning the well of his digital footprint.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And speaking of his professional standing, there is a very specific piece of visual evidence in the sources that proves she knew the exact value of the reputation she was trying to destroy.
Right, the screenshot regarding his book.
The screenshot is a foundational piece of evidence, isn't it?
It is crucial for establishing criminal intent. The respondent captured an image of the claimant's professional book, Log Into Hell.
And posted it alongside highly technical presentation layouts of his digital forensics work.
Which are materials that clearly establish his elite status in the industry.
But the text she added to that image called him an amateur, a fraud, or a criminal.
Right.
When I looked at that, I thought of an art thief stealing a masterpiece, publicly displaying it to prove they have it, and then claiming the painter has no talent.
That's a great comparison.
It's an inherent contradiction. I mean, if he's a nobody, why are you highlighting his published books and complex forensic charts?
The contradiction is the point. In cross-border litigation, proving defamation is only half the battle.
You also have to prove intent.
Exactly. You must prove the intent behind it. This visual evidence satisfies the legal threshold for dolo directo.
Or premeditated malice.
Right. By explicitly showcasing his top-tier professional credentials, she is legally acknowledging that she understands his market value.
She is admitting that she knows he operates in the top 1 to 3% of the Latin American cybersecurity market.
And by acknowledging his elite status while simultaneously publishing defamatory text designed to ruin it.
She proves she is not acting out of reckless ignorance.
Exactly. She is executing a calculated, targeted strike against his precise commercial sector.
She understands the economic value of his reputation and is deliberately attempting to obliterate it.
Dolo directo transforms the act from simple online harassment into actionable, premeditated economic sabotage.
Okay, so we have the motive, which is displaced aggression.
Right.
We have the mechanism, which is regulatory sabotage and identity fixation.
Yes.
And we have the proof of premeditated malice. But how does an investigator take a chaotic, sprawling internet fight and package it into something that stands up in a court of law?
That's the real challenge. Because the internet often feels like a jurisdictional black hole.
Yeah, someone in Belgium can destroy a life in Uruguay, and the local police usually just throw up their hands.
The local authorities throw up their hands when the evidence is presented as a messy, two-sided social media argument.
Right. He said, she said.
But Alberto circumvented that problem by deploying an architecture of asymmetric digital defense.
He stopped treating her attacks as personal insults.
And began treating them as raw forensic artifacts.
Now, the natural human instinct when you are publicly attacked is to defend yourself in the same arena.
To post your own screenshots, to argue in the replies, which is the worst possible action you can take. Engaging in the argument degrades the evidentiary chain of custody.
It blurs the lines of jurisdiction and mutual escalation.
Right. But Alberto utilized his Supreme Court forensic examiner background. He deployed public PGP keys and cryptographic hashes, specifically SHA-256 algorithms.
To lock down the evidence.
Exactly.
I want to make sure I fully grasp the mechanics of this for those listening. From my understanding of cryptography, a SHA-256 hash acts kind of like a digital meat grinder.
I like that analogy.
You put a file or a screenshot into the algorithm, and it grinds it down into a unique string of 64 characters.
Yes.
And you can't ungrind the meat to get the file back.
No, you can't.
But more importantly, if you change even a single pixel of that original screenshot and run it through the grinder again, the 64-character output will be completely, entirely different.
That is spot on. We refer to that as the avalanche effect in cryptography.
Okay, the avalanche effect.
By hashing every single one of her defamatory posts, Alberto created an immutable digital fingerprint for each attack at the exact moment it occurred.
So if she later deletes the tweet and accuses him of photoshopping the evidence...
The hash proves mathematically that the file has remained perfectly unaltered since the moment it was captured.
Wow. And he fortified that with public PGP keys.
Pretty good privacy keys, yes. A PGP signature proves unequivocally that the forensic capture was performed by a specific entity at a specific timestamp.
He wrapped her erratic emotional outbursts in an unbreakable chain of cryptographic custody.
He turned her tantrums into court-admissible math.
That is amazing. And that disciplined approach is most evident in the zero-contact breach.
Yes, this is a pivotal moment in the logs.
The dossier outlines that on May 19, 2026, Alberto's legal representation served a formal zero-contact policy directive to the respondent.
A very clear, legally binding boundary. Cease all communication immediately.
A standard necessary step in institutionalizing a stalking claim. But the sources show that she almost immediately breached that directive by sending 6 consecutive unauthorized emails.
She couldn't stop herself.
Now, if I am being stalked, my primal instinct is to open those emails. I need to know what the threat is.
Of course. Are they escalating? Are they threatening physical harm?
Exactly. But the logs show Alberto specifically and intentionally left every single one of those emails unopened in his inbox.
He did.
Why would an expert blind himself to the attacker's next move?
Because opening the email destroys the pristine state of the artifact.
Yeah.
This is a brilliant demonstration of prioritizing long-term legal victory over short-term emotional reassurance.
How does opening it ruin it?
When an email routes through SMTP servers across the globe, it accumulates a massive trail of hidden metadata in its headers.
We are talking about originating IP addresses, server hop timestamps, MIME-type classifications.
Routing protocols, yes.
Yeah.
All of that is embedded.
And if you click open on your email client, your software interacts with that payload.
It might trigger a read receipt, or download a tracking pixel embedded by the attacker.
Or alter the internal read state metadata on the server.
Exactly. It's like walking through a snowy crime scene to look at the weapon. You leave your own footprints all over the evidence.
Oh, that makes total sense. So by leaving the email sealed?
He preserved the raw header metadata exactly as it was transmitted from her European servers.
He handed Italian and international investigators perfectly preserved, cryptographically secure proofs of persistent harassment that breached a formal legal boundary.
And she cannot claim the emails were spoofed, tampered with, or altered by the recipient because the metadata is completely untouched.
The technical discipline required to just let those sit there is astounding.
It takes immense restraint.
You mentioned Italian investigators, and the dossier lists several active institutional registrations filed with the Italian authorities.
Yes, the institutional escalation.
Given that Alberto's in Uruguay and the respondent is in Belgium, how does Italy become the primary legal battleground?
Alberto holds Italian citizenship.
Ah, okay.
And European jurisprudence operates on the theory of ubiquity regarding digital crimes.
The theory of ubiquity, what does that mean?
The theory posits that the crime occurs both where the data was transmitted from and where the damage is acutely felt or legally recognized.
I see. So by leveraging his Italian citizenship.
He legally routed the entire conflict into the European Union's regulatory framework.
Forcing her to face the consequences within her own geopolitical backyard.
Exactly. It was a masterstroke of jurisdictional strategy.
Let's break down these specific Italian state protocols because they highlight the severity of the institutional response.
They do. He filed these with the Garante della Privacy,
which is the Italian Data Protection Authority,
and the Polizia Postale in Rome.
My understanding is the Polizia Postale isn't just a local precinct. They are a highly specialized national cybercrime and communications police force.
They are elite. They don't mobilize for Twitter spats.
They mobilize for systemic violations of law.
Exactly. The first protocol, PROT, 0069599826, explicitly tracks the unlawful personal data processing and doxing.
That would cover her publishing his private financial agreements and family details on public networks.
Correct. It falls under severe GDPR violations.
And the second protocol?
The second, PROT, 0069699526, targets the malicious internet tracking loops.
This is the institutional investigation into the technical mechanism she used to hunt his digital footprint.
Yes, and to tether her newly changed name to his search results.
And the third, PROT, 0000777426, seems to be the heavy hitter.
It is. It's the expanded criminal and privacy complaint detailing the subsequent communication breaches.
Like the 6 sealed emails we discussed.
Exactly, and the penal codes attached to these protocols are brutal.
Article 6.1 bis is atti persecutory.
Yes, which is the Italian legal definition of stalking.
And Article 595, paragraph 3, is diffamazione aggravata via electronic means.
Aggravated defamation is a critical distinction in European law.
How is it different from normal defamation?
Well, if you defame someone to a small group in a private room, the damage is contained.
Right.
But when you use an electronic medium, like the internet, to broadcast defamatory claims to a potentially limitless global audience.
The law treats it as an aggravated offense.
Yes. The potential for reputational destruction is exponential, and the penal consequences scale accordingly.
Often carrying significant prison sentences.
Yes, absolutely.
We have spent a lot of time on the legal and technical machinery of this case, but we really need to pivot to Section 5 of the dossier.
The human cost.
Right, because beneath the SHA 256 hashes and the Italian penal codes, there are human nervous systems absorbing a relentless barrage of trauma.
Oh, without a doubt. The psychological impact detailed in the clinical records is profound.
As we noted at the beginning, Alberto's baseline psychological state was already compromised.
Surviving wrongful imprisonment induces deep systemic changes to a person's neurobiology.
When you have already had your life, your freedom, and your reputation stripped away by a state apparatus, your brain is hypervigilant.
Right, to any new threat to your autonomy or reputation.
And the dossier includes certified psychiatric evaluations from Dr. Luis Rodriguez at Hospital Evangelico in Montevideo.
These aren't vague claims of feeling stressed.
No, these are clinical certifications of acute PTSD spikes, panic attacks, and severe depressive episodes.
All directly mapped to the timeline of her digital attacks.
It is trauma stacking.
Exactly. The digital harassment acts as an abrasive, constantly reopening the psychological wounds of his wrongful imprisonment.
But the aggression wasn't limited to Alberto.
No, it wasn't. The respondent employed extortive tactics against his family to maximize her psychological leverage.
This is where the reality of cyber displacement becomes truly abhorrent to me.
It's awful.
The sources document her sending threats like, "What if I tell your mother about the money?"
She is attempting to weaponize his elderly mother to force his compliance.
Targeting the familial support structure is a classic coercion methodology.
You bypass the primary target's defenses by attacking their softest vulnerability.
And the physical result of that tactic is documented in the medical ledgers.
Alberto's mother is 73 years old.
The extreme psychological terror induced by the looming threat of an international smear campaign against her son caused a severe physiological collapse.
It is heartbreaking to read. Dr. Amaral, an internal medicine specialist, certified the acute distress.
It literally forced Alberto's mother into full wheelchair immobility.
We often treat digital violence as secondary to physical violence because it happens through a screen.
Right, people think words can't hurt
But
you.
when you look at the psychosomatic cascade,
The way sheer terror over a digital threat completely disables a 73-year-old woman's motor functions.
the distinction between physical and digital violence vanishes. The real-world trauma is identical.
It is a terrifying realization that someone typing on a keyboard in a cafe in Belgium can paralyze an elderly woman in Uruguay through sheer psychological terror.
It really highlights the stakes here.
But the dossier makes it very clear that Alberto did not just absorb this trauma.
No, he engineered a massive, formalized offset.
Let's look at the multi-state pincer movement his legal team has constructed.
The counterstrike is multi-tiered. It targets her on civil, corporate, family, and criminal fronts.
Let's begin with the financial offset. The legal team is preparing a $335,000 civil lawsuit.
Which completely dwarfs the original €6,000 debt she refused to collect.
The dossier breaks down the damages. Moral damages for the psychological torment, massive medical outlays for his mother's specialized care.
And the catastrophic loss of international consulting earnings.
They specifically cite the reputational damage impacting his participation at DEFCON 2026.
This is basically the Super Bowl of the cybersecurity world.
The civil suit is designed to mathematically neutralize any financial leverage she believes she held.
But the extrajudicial and corporate measures are likely to hit much faster than the lawsuit.
Right, the first tier of the pincer is corporate HR notification.
His team is delivering the fully certified, cryptographically secured forensic dossier directly to the compliance board of the respondent's employer.
In today's corporate environment, data privacy is paramount.
Absolutely. If your company discovers an employee is actively engaged in multi-jurisdictional cyberstalking
Weaponizing PII, personally identifiable information.
and facing active Italian criminal investigations for GDPR violations,
The employee becomes an unmanageable liability.
the projection in the risk report is immediate termination for cause.
The employer cannot risk the contagion of her legal liabilities attaching to their corporate entity.
They have to cut ties. The second tier of the pincer addresses the child custody disruption, circling back to the Cybergirl 10 paradox.
The legal team is formally submitting the behavioral disparity logs to the ex-husband and the relevant authorities in Brussels.
These are the logs documenting her absolute passivity while her 11-year-old daughter was smuggled across borders.
juxtaposed against her rabid aggression over a 5-minute phone call boundary.
Exactly. Under Article 574 of the Italian Penal Code, which governs child abduction and endangerment.
These logs are devastating.
They provide objective, documented evidence of behavioral instability and improper prioritization of child welfare.
They armed the ex-husband with heavily verified leverage that could potentially secure him sole custody.
Completely dismantling her standing in the family courts.
She used her identity as a victimized single mother to build sympathy online.
And now the immutable record of her digital behavior is being used to systematically dismantle her custody rights.
And the third tier is the most dramatic: border enforcement.
Because Alberto institutionalized the conflict through the Polizia Postale, the active penal protocols under Articles 612 and 595 create a transnational snare.
Meaning, if an Italian prosecutor formalizes an indictment based on this massive forensic dossier,
It triggers the potential activation of a European arrest warrant, or EAW.
I want to break down exactly how an EAW functions, because it's not just a piece of paper on a desk in Rome.
No, it interfaces with the Schengen Information System, or
Yeah.
SAS.
The SIS is the massive database shared by border control, customs, and police across the entire European Union.
Right. If an SIS alert is tied to her identity, including her newly adopted alias, Suvi Hill,
Her passport and digital identity are flagged across the continent.
meaning she is effectively trapped.
If she tries to board a flight at Brussels airport, if she attempts to take a train across the border to France,
Or even if she gets pulled over for a broken taillight in Germany.
the SIS alert triggers an immediate detention order,
The entire Schengen zone becomes a localized geographical prison.
and her legal exposure is compounded by a final unforced error documented in the logs.
False reporting.
Yeah, in her efforts to intimidate Alberto, she publicly broadcast claims that she had reported him to Interpol and Europol.
Which, again, against a man who survived wrongful imprisonment, is an act of supreme psychological cruelty.
But it was a bluff.
Total bluff.
Mm.
Alberto's legal team ran official compliance checks with the Ministry of the Interior.
The official records confirm that absolutely no such reports exist.
She completely fabricated the involvement of international law enforcement.
And under Italian and international law, fabricating a police report against an innocent person to cause them harm is a standalone severe penal charge.
Known as calumnia.
Right, calumnia.
It is prosecuted aggressively because it is an attack on the state itself.
You are attempting to weaponize the justice system and waste institutional resources to execute a personal vendetta.
And it carries independent, mandatory prison sentences separate from the stalking and defamation charges.
So when you lay all of this out, the impending job loss, the potential destruction of her child custody, the massive financial ruin of a $335,000 lawsuit,
The activation of the Schengen border traps.
and the multiple criminal indictments, including calumnia, it is a staggering collapse of a person's life.
And it was all sparked because she lacked the psychological bandwidth to handle a 5-minute phone call limit.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the dangers of displaced aggression in the digital age.
It really is a textbook case.
As we synthesize all of this, the core lesson that screams out from this dossier is that the internet's borderless nature is an illusion.
Oh, a total illusion.
We all suffer from this persistent delusion that the keyboard provides a shield of anonymity and consequence-free expression.
But that illusion shatters into a million pieces when confronted with the cold reality of radical transparency.
Immutable forensic hashes.
And the long arm of cross-border legal frameworks like the theory of ubiquity.
The contrast in behavioral maturity between the two actors basically defines the outcome of this case.
You have an aggressor driven by impulsive, ego-depleted, emotional escalation.
Resulting in permanent, catastrophic damage to her own legal and digital footprint.
And countering that, you have a target who utilized supreme, almost clinical discipline.
Alberto did not fight a street brawl on social media.
No, he institutionalized the conflict through data protection authorities and penal codes.
That level of restraint is rare, but as the dossier proves, it guarantees total narrative and legal dominance.
It's the difference between throwing rocks at a fortress and quietly drawing up the blueprints to dismantle it stone by stone.
That's beautifully said. Which leaves us with a deeply unsettling question to ponder as we close out this analysis for you.
I think we're both wondering the same thing.
As our online personas become inextricably fused with our legal identities, international banking compliance, and global border security, What happens when the things we type in a moment of displaced rage become more legally binding and vastly more destructive than our physical actions?
Scary thought.
In a hyper-connected surveillance grid where a trivial 5-minute phone boundary can detonate an international cyberwar involving Interpol checks, clinical toxicology, and European arrest warrants, is anyone truly insulated from the digital blast radius of another person's unresolved trauma?
Something we all need to think about.
We do. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.